Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another instalment in the Sydney Railroad build. If you're watching over the last couple of weeks, you'll have seen me make a lot of progress on track laying, getting the main lines around the peninsula and also in the engine terminal. For this week's instalment, I'm going to complete the mainline circuit up over the high elevation from the engine terminal to the top of the ramp back down to the lower level. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and lay that track. Earlier I said I wasn't sure whether I was going to continue track laying in the yard area or on the main line down the east side of the room. Well, it turns out that I don't have a whole lot of Code 70 flex track in stock at the moment. I've placed an order with Microengineering, but while that is in the mail, I am going to move over to the other side and I'm going to continue track laying at the top of the ramp. The end of track right now is just behind all this scrap lumber, and I'm going to continue around and get it into the area along the east side of the room. First thing I need to do is sweep off the sub-road bed and get some foam strips down. So let me just turn the camera off, get back to work, and I'll talk to you again later. Well, that is the ramp continued all the way up straight and about 3/4 of the way around the curve at the top. That's as far as I'm going to go for now. I've now got to start switching to the invisible feeders underneath the rails, which means I've got to work out all the colours for the rest of the main line. It's almost the end of day anyway, so I'm just going to leave it at that for today, and I will continue again tomorrow. Well, this morning I have finished the curve at the top of the grade, and I've got in the crossover into the siding. I've also prepped the next 4 pieces of track, but I'm going to go in now, get some lunch, and then by the time I come back out, all this glue should be good and hard, and I can recycle the weights. So far this afternoon, I have extended the track about another 10 feet along here. I'm getting close to the massive turnouts at the other end, so I went inside to get them so I can position them approximately where they go. And I can continue on the rear main. That's the one closest to the camera right now because I'm behind the railroad. That one can go all the way to the next benchwork joint. The main line nearest the aisle needs to stop short because it gets a number 10 turnout in there for the junction to the harbour. And the 2 mainline crossovers are both on the next benchwork section, and the crossover into the siding is split between the 2. That's going to be quite complex because it goes from code 83 to code 70, and there's a benchwork joint and an elevation change in the middle of it. So I'm going to have to take my time on that. Anyway, the next step is to get some more foam roadbed strips installed for the main lines. And I think I may as well go all the way through the next 2 sections, all the way through to the other end of the junction. So let me get on with that, and I'll be right back and talk to you again later. Well, I have now prepped the first turnout and got that ready. I haven't drilled the hole for the switch machine yet, so I'm not going to install it, but I do have the track running up to it on both mains. It's time to go in now and to get the Zeus fed. So I'm going to continue tomorrow. Probably going to go a lot slower tomorrow because this massive turnouts here is going to take some time to get everything cut to fit. Well, here is this area as it looks on Thursday morning. I came out here for a short time again last night, laid a whole load more roadbed strips and prepped 3 turnouts. I didn't get them fully installed, although I did drill the holes for the switch machines. I'm going to attach the feeders now, get them glued in place, and then I've got some plain track to fill in. So I think I'm going to do the industrial spurs at this end, these 2, before I tackle the mass of turnouts in the junction area. So let me just turn the camera off, get back to work, and I'll talk to you again later. Well, I've now installed the plain track in this area, or most of it anyway, and I have prepped the 4 turnouts for the mainline crossovers. I've also almost finished prepping this one here that leads to the siding, but I've still got to trim the diverging route. The next thing I'm going to do is attach feeder wires to the two mainline crossovers and get those installed, and then I'll have a lot more places that I can go from there. I didn't finish this crossover onto the siding yesterday because there's a few issues with it and I wasn't quite sure how best to deal with it. I had a lot on my mind yesterday and I couldn't give it the level of concentration I needed to. If I get back down on the level again, you can see that we have foam roadbed at two different thicknesses, because we've got the thick stuff on the main line and the thinner stuff on the siding. Now with a number 8 crossover and greater than normal track centres, there would normally be enough length on the crossover to put the 1/8 inch grade in there. But because I'm going across a benchwork joint from one section to another and changing rail size all at the same time, it's going to make it very difficult for a smooth transition. So I've decided that I am going to jack up this turnout. I'm going to lift the end of the siding up to mainline level and then go back down again for the other industry. So I've got to peel up this foam, put a piece of thicker stuff in, and also use a 1/16 inch shim to go down in 2 steps instead of just one big one. Well, that crossover is now in. It was easy once I adjusted the grade. I've also put in the next piece of track up to this last number 6 turnout leading to the cement works, and I've got the plain track in between the two mainline crossovers. Well, that is all the turnouts in this area done. From now on it's just plain track all the way to the end of the yard where I finished up a few days ago. Well, that is the main line marked out and the foam roadbed installed all the way to the end of the room and around the corner to where I finished up last time. I'm going to move everything to the inside of the railroad and work from the aisle from now on. The only reason I was working from the outside before is that there's a nice wide area here to use as a workbench. Since I've got open grid the other side, there's nothing to be gained by it, and I may as well go round to the inside because most of that main line is closer to the aisle than it is to the wall. So I'm going to get all my tools moved and I'm going to continue. It shouldn't take very long. I would expect to be able to finish that today. I think it's about 50 feet of track, 25 on each main. So let me just turn the camera off, get back to work, and I'll talk to you again later. Well, I didn't get quite all the way to the end. I did the rest of the straight run. And I prepped the first 2 pieces on this curve. I ran out of shims for the super elevation, so I'm going to go in and get some more. I'm not sure if I feel like coming back out again afterwards. Well, this morning I got the last 10 feet on both main lines installed around this curve. I went inside and I left the weights to do their job for a couple of hours. So now I'm back out, I'm going to get rid of the weights and I'm going to super elevate these 2 curves. I've also got some soldering to do at the end. I'll do that as well before I strain it with the shims for super elevation. So let me just get back to work and I'll talk to you again later. Well, there is that last main line curve super elevated all the way around. And that actually completes the main line for the entire railroad. I haven't done the alternative route to the harbour yet, but the main circuit, the continuous circuit, is done. I've still got about 100 yards to connect the feeders up. I've got a lot of bus wires missing. All the feeders are in. You can see a few underneath here, just hanging down. But I haven't hooked any of them up for the last 100 yards, well, 50 yards on each track. So about 1 football field worth of main line to wire up and then I can run over the entire circuit. That's not going to happen today though. It's going to take me several days to get the bus wires in, get everything hooked up and tested, and I will probably install all the switch machines before I do that. Well, unexpectedly, as I was making the last recording about this end curve being done, the track that I had on order, another box of code 70 that I needed to finish the spurs in this area, arrived. And although the US Postal Service apparently did their best to destroy the box in transit, the contents were perfectly fine, so not a big deal. Anyway, that is those 3 spurs finished at that end. 3 quite long spurs, it was 5 yards of track. I've still got 2 more spurs at this end. For the lead track, I want to use micro-engineering on this curve, and I have some of that on order as well. So I'm going to leave this end until I can finish it. I've got plenty to get on with. I'm going to come out again tomorrow and start installing bus wires down this area. Well, down both sides, this whole long side of the railroad and the peninsula as well. Needs all the bus wires. But that will be a task for tomorrow, so I'll talk to you again then. Well, that's all for this week's instalment. I think that is quite a milestone, getting the mainline circuit complete, or at least all the track laid on the mainline circuit. It's still a big job to get all the electrics finished. So it's going to be a while before I can test run over the entire loop. But we're getting close now. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to release next week, but I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun, and I hope to see you back there for that. So in the meantime, thanks for watching, and bye for now.